Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pit Talk, pulling pits and opinions with your host, Gunny G, where service members help service members, period. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcast. And on some social media platforms such as X, YouTube, and Rumble, let us know how we're doing. Any criticism is good criticism. Let's get into it. We got a special guest by the name of, Twitter famous Old Ghost 21. I'll let him introduce himself, sir. Where you enlisted from, how many years you served, duty stations, operations, and the whole shebang. Hit it. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Gunny. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So I enlisted in the Navy in South Florida. So I went to Orlando for Navy boot camp. I served on the USS Iwo Jima LPH-2 for 4 years. Started out on the hangar deck, went to the flight deck. I was aircraft crash and salvage and working toward my landing signalman. I only had a few landings left to go, and those Cobra pilots are nuts. Med cruises to the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Gitmo, other cruises, and it just wasn't quite exciting enough. So
Wow.
I left the Navy with my charge. I went to the Marine Corps recruiter. I said, "You see that right there?" Pointing to one of his posters. Said, "I want to go Marine Recon. I want it in black and white, or I'm walking out of here." Yeah, he told me it was all volunteer, but he told me exactly how to get there, and he didn't lie. That's how it worked. I went to boot camp at Paris Island, of course. I immediately went to Okinawa, 3rd Recon Battalion. Stayed there 2.5 years. Deployed out of there, not combat, not to the sandbox. They had deactivated Delta Company in 1976, and they stood it back up with us in 1980. And so we were green. Charlie and Bravo companies were not. They sent them to the sandbox and wherever else they needed to send them. And then I rotated here back to the States for my last year at 2nd Force Recon. And then I EASed out of the Marine Corps with an honorable discharge. I might mention that the USS Iwo Jima was involved with the Achille Laurel cruise ship incident in 1985. Landed a Delta Force element on board to go and dispatch the bad guys. And that was pretty much the point where I decided I was wasting my time there and needed to go.
Interesting. Let me ask you something, sir. Navy, Marine Corps, which is the best branch?
They're both fine branches. The Navy does many important jobs, just like the Marine Corps. I don't want to diss my sailor brothers and sisters. I didn't care for the Navy too much. I like the Marine Corps a lot more.
Well,
I
well, that
actually
answer
intended to stay until forever.
that answers my question. It's not who's better. It's which did you have more fun? Right. Okay. And tell me about Okinawa. Obviously, you were out there. Did you enjoy Okinawa?
I did very much. Yeah, I loved it there. Well, except, training in the jungles in the middle of the summer, 100 degrees,
That
with
sucks.
98% humidity. I mean, it sucked, but it was still fun.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they don't call it the suck for nothing, right?
Yeah, I tell you what, if you can learn to navigate an NTA with a map and a compass, you can navigate anywhere in the world.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, sir. Here you go. Um, I'll tell you, how were the living conditions out in Okinawa?
Living conditions, we lived in a squad bay out on a point. I mean, it wasn't horrible. It was a squad bay. We had shelter, air conditioning. Sometimes we had food and water, and so life was good.
Hell yeah, squad based. Would you, if you had, I know you didn't live in the conditions they live do now. They get their own room, share a common area. Compare and contrast. Which one's better, common area, own room, or a squad bay?
Which one's better for the camaraderie, or which one's better for comfort? I'll tell you right now, I noticed a difference, and I stayed near Camp Lejeune for many, many years after I left the Marine Corps. So I saw, more and more barracks being built, uh, and the difference that I noticed is that with military personnel not being in a closer proximity, the camaraderie is different. It's still there, it's still great, but it's definitely different. Living in a squad bay, you're right there with your brothers and working with each other, living with each other all day, every day, and you're definitely closer.
Yeah, I agree. Physically and literally, or figuratively and literally. I would say that I would agree with you. I mean, I know the barracks life. I mean, when you're a junior Marine, you're living with four other dudes, maybe, excessive, but four other dudes in one room, which is kind of like the idea of a squad mate, but then once you get promoted, you're sharing with one other person, and then when you get promoted to E5 sergeant, then you're on your own in your room by yourself. And I get the dynamic, I get the
which is
idea of
great.
it. What's that?
Well, when you begin at advanced rank, it is appropriate. You make corporal. You should have a little less time around your troops. You make sergeant, and you start working your way up from there. And then you shouldn't be with your troops 24/7
I agree.
nearby,
Yes.
but not
Yes,
literally.
I agree. I think that that's the good idea. I know nowadays, I think it's the same on most installations, Marine Corps installations. I think it's the same way. But squad based, though, definitely the camaraderie is way different. You're definitely a tight knit group. I think we're tight knit group. I agree to still, but it is different. Like we were breathing the same air, living in the same air. For you guys, it's
It was a little different. They tended to keep us away from most people,
yeah.
which was
Squad based
probably a
living
good
seems like
idea.
a good idea, though. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean,
Yeah.
through boot camp and then MCT squad bay living, and then even in MOS school, depending on what you know, how big the classes were. I mean, squad bays were appropriate. You were living with four, sometimes six dudes in one room. Like it makes sense. You get to know each other, blah blah blah. But yeah, I agree. It's a different environment, different camaraderie. I prefer your type of camaraderie versus this type of camaraderie, in my opinion. Even though I never experienced it. Sounds like a good
Yeah,
time, to be honest.
well, so we did. We had a great time.
What was the best part of Okinawa?
Best part of Okinawa. There were a lot of good parts. I don't know I don't know if I had a best part. Our squad bay was out on the point there in Camp Schwab, and we're right next to the beach, which I like. I'm kind of a water dog. I was always the guy at the end of the 550 cord for the hydrological surveys, so I love to swim. I love the ocean. Did a lot of scuba diving out there. The culture and the history and the architecture and all those aspects of Okinawa were really, really great. I mean, it was just such a mind-opening thing to see and to experience and interact with Okinawans. And for the most part, really friendly people, very respectful people. Um, you had a few communists up in Nago, imagine that. But it was really great. Anybody ever gets a chance to go there, it's well worth the trip.
Yeah, absolutely. I
First child connection.
say again?
My first child was born and was at not Fatima, the whatever hospital is down there.
Yeah.
Shot my children.
Wow. So technically, the Japanese, right? Well, American citizenship. That's awesome.
Yeah, he doesn't have a birth certificate. He has a certificate of birth abroad.
No, yeah, that's what's up. That's a frameable item, to be honest.
Yeah.
Which one's better, Okinawa or Lejeune?
I know a lot of my Marine Corps brethren are gonna lambaste me for this, but I liked Okinawa better. So our second force unit was in French Creek at Camp Lejeune, and it was nicknamed Felony Creek. So there you go.
Wow. Hey, and I remember being up in Schwab T80 a couple times. There's not a single
Mhm.
female on that little camp. And I remember going. We were had Liberty on Friday, and we go to the E Club, and it was just a bunch of dudes hanging out. It's the weirdest thing ever. I'm like, wait, isn't the E Club supposed to be male and female having fun? Nah, it was a straight males everywhere. It was wild, super rowdy, big old mosh pit just for hours at a time. Anyways, I'm pretty sure that was the experience for you as well, right?
It was, yeah, and I don't recall there being any females on board even back then.
Yeah,
That was not a good that wasn't a good idea.
that's not a good idea. Well, anyways, let me ask you. So when do you transition from the Marine Corps?
When did I? 2. I EASed out of the Marine Corps with my second honorable discharge.
Crazy. And you didn't let my funny thing is you said the Navy, but you were on these cruises to all these islands and to these locations, and you didn't like it?
Well, I like the cruises. I prefer to be on a cruise ship, honestly. No, I think, it was an old ship, USS Ujima. Yeah, keel was laid in '59. It was, launched, I think, in '61, if I remember right. So it was an old ship, and it was generally a stepping stone for flag officers to move up to bigger ships. So the maintenance issues, were a constant concern, just a constant pain in the butt. And, but overall, we were okay. We were okay. We had steak and lobster Sundays. We had some good crew on board, and we did get to see some really nice places. It had a few not so nice incidents.
Oh yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad that you enjoyed your time, at least both in the Navy and Marine Corps. Definitely night and day in comparison to other branches. But in 19, you said 19.
That's when yeah,
How was it for you?
geez, it was hard. It was hard. They didn't, they had just started transition assistance programs,
Uh,
and they weren't very good back then. They've grown, I understand, and matured, and they're better help to veterans getting out. So I pretty much had to do it on my own. I did have some local peers, some local friends, some local church friends that helped. So, but it took a long time. But as you can tell, the Marine Corps,
yeah, it's true. I was just gonna ask. I was like, I talk to a couple guys all the time. I keep in contact with some of the veterans, and they're way older than me, right? They're like in their 50s, 60s, and they say they never lose it. You never really transition. Is that true for you?
it is, yes.
Can you elaborate for the listeners? Just elaborate on that piece real quick. How come, I talk to some of the new age veterans that get out, the veterans that retire now, and I ask them,
Mhm.
they don't, some of them say, yeah, it's a part of life. And now I'm past that life. I want to move on to another part of life. But for you, it's not the same. You haven't really transitioned. Elaborate on that piece.
So after the Marine Corps, I ended up in the construction industry and eventually started my own company. Worked for myself for a long time. I think I had, ever since the Marine Corps, have had a very strong sense of patriotism for our country. I've always been a natural protector. That's just a part of who I am, and I know that about myself. Learned a sense of dedication to helping protect our nation and doing what I reasonably can to protect our nation, and that just never went away. It's just been, I think the Marine Corps brought that out and refined it and then ingrained it in me, and it just stuck. So I retired in 2019. I keep up with a huge network of veterans, um, and including some of my old recon buddies. One of them stayed in after battalion recon, went force, and then went MARSOC and retired out of MARSOC after 28 years. Yeah. So I invest my time in helping other veterans when it's needed. I'm not affiliated with any specific or one veterans group. Just people come to me, hey, what do I do about this? Or hey, can you help me get in contact with them? Or whatever throughout the day. Point them in the right direction. If I can't, I find somebody who can.
What was, well, thank you for that. Cause that's why I have you guys on is service members helping service members. Your adversity helps others fight through theirs and then become more resilient. So I do appreciate your time and your story that telling us. I'd say, what was the hardest thing about transition for you back in 1992?
I'm not sure. It was just all hard.
Yeah, I bet. The one thing that you can remember that comes to
I
mind first.
learning how to I didn't know how to be a normal adult. My father signed for me to contract with the Navy when I was 17, went to boot camp when I was 18, and I was, in the military until I was 26. So I didn't have that period of being a normal adult that most people do, who've not been in the military. So learning how to do that and learning how to this is probably important for a lot of you guys and ladies, a lot of you folks, is when you leave the military, you have to interact with your family in a different way. Okay, and I'm talking about your wives, your husband, your children. They come first. You have to interact with them in a different way than maybe you did while you were in the military. It's not life anymore. So I urge you to be mindful of that. And if you need any assistance doing that, please reach out to someone. Reach out to your American Legion, your VFW, reach out to your church family, reach out to counselors at the VA, wherever you have to go. Just find somebody and start talking to somebody about how you can transition that part of you into some level of normalcy.
That's good. That's good advice, man. I tell you what, you don't know how it's very well said. It's you don't know how to be a normal adult, which is 99% of this population at that age. What is it to be at a young age you're expected to, walk the straight and narrow, within Navy instruction, Marine Corps instruction, and you're expected to be the upright citizen all the time. And what it is, not saying to do bad things to figure it out to become normal, but you don't know what you can see what bad looks like, right, with the normal civilian populace, but you're not expected to do those things. So you're always uptight and super anxious, like trying to figure out what it is that I can't do, I can do. You know what I mean? Is that the case for you? Was that the case for you?
Yes. Yes. Marines in general are spun up, okay, tighter than, than the average person. Of course, we all know this. And, uh, and then, Marines at, Camp, Camp Lejeune, Marines at duty stations like Okinawa are kept at a higher stress level and on purpose. And then reconnaissance Marines even above that. So that was definitely quite the hurdle to overcome. And it took a long time. And frankly, I'll tell you, it took a toll on my family. And I wish that I had had the resources then that are available today. It may have been smoother.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Unfortunately, sometimes even now we don't, as a service, I think as a military, we don't we're very proactive and then we're very reactive at the same time because we don't understand or take into consideration the end state of an individual, which people are the center of gravity and sometimes we overlook things and sometimes we don't even consider those things because we don't even think about it. So I guess it's kind of
Right.
ignorance, right? At the same time, it's like, well, we don't really think about it. How could we can't think of all things in terms of transition, but I think we're in a better spot than we were at during your time for sure. I agree. I gotta ask you something though. How do you what are you doing now now that you've been out and retired officially 2019?
What am I doing? I have been working in the Patriot community, okay, since 2019. I've helped start several groups, started a couple myself, and these are people that generally want to disseminate information. They want to learn how they can better themselves, how they can teach and prepare their families, and a lot of which translates directly into your average disaster preparedness, tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, that sort of thing. Done volunteer work at the southern border, Texas, Arizona, 20 two 2000 December of 21, I was at the Texas border, for several weeks. Early in 22, I went to Arizona for a year and a half and worked in election integrity activities out there. That's where I ended up getting doxxed, but I'm the Mesa Dropbox guy.
Really?
Yes,
Okay, very well. Continue.
I'm that guy. I will tell you unequivocally there was fraud in 2022. We saw it firsthand, out there in Arizona, in several ways. And fortunately, finally, those things are being addressed, and hopefully, will the people that committed those federal crimes and acts of treason will be held accountable. Back here in North Carolina, a little over 2 years ago, I think, and doing the same thing, a little light election integrity work here, working in the preparedness community, got involved in my local GOP. Wife has actually gotten into writing legislation and has authored a bill against cyber stalking and another against doxing that have been submitted to the North Carolina legislature. So
That's
very proud
cool.
of her for that.
Interesting. That's pretty
Uh,
cool. That sounds
it,
like a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal. It's in itself and a lot of work, it seems like.
it is. It is. We suffered the results and the attacks of cyber stalking and and cyber doxing and physical stalking and death threats and that sort of thing, both in Arizona and here. And North Carolina has very lax cyber stalking law and does not have any doxing law, anti-doxing law, I should say. Whereas Arizona, Florida, and maybe a handful of other states have very strong anti-doxing laws, and we need that here. Every state needs it.
That's crazy. That's pretty cool though to know somebody that actually knows the process, how to submit the process. I mean, I'm sure it's open source information, but it's cool to know that. I know that you're married to your wife that obviously submitted that stuff. So that's pretty cool. Uh, what let's
I want real quick, if you don't mind, I just want to mention that there were others involved in helping to get that legislation that she wrote up to people at our North Carolina House. So I want to give shout outs to them. Y'all know who you are. I don't know if you want me to mention you here or not, but she wrote it and then it ended up being a team effort. So I want that to be known.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is your show. I'm just here asking questions and learning from you. Let me ask you, let me backtrack it just a little bit. I know Marines, service members suffer from anxiety, depression, purpose oriented tasks, mission oriented. And then when transition, they don't have that no more. Touch on that piece. And then obviously, we're not counselors, we're not psychiatrists. We can only speak on our experience in terms of mental health. Kind of put those two together and give them a tool for the toolbox, so to speak, in transition, mental health, and then prevent them from taking that 30-inch step in the wrong direction, such as suicide, per se. The floor is
Yes.
yours, hit it.
Okay. Wow. Well, that's a very serious subject. I start. I was involved in a training event that was not sanctioned by the Marine Corps in any way, shape, or form. It was worse than hazing. When I got out, I did not know that I was suffering from PTSD from this. It took years for someone to tell me, "Hey, dude, you got PTSD." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So I didn't know. Back then, it was hardly known, whereas today, everybody knows what PTSD is. And thankfully, there's more treatment out there for it. That as well had detrimental effects on my life and my family's life. And I'll tell you this, I wasn't an alcoholic, but I did end up using alcohol to self-medicate. I quit 5 years ago. Actually, August will be 6, and that was detrimental to myself and to my family, and I almost ended up dying a couple of times. So I'm gonna tell you this, Marines, sailors, airmen, Coast Guard, Army, you soldiers, if you are having problems from PTSD and you're drinking, you need to go and talk to somebody right now. I urge you, please talk to somebody right now, and you need to stop drinking. If you are able to alleviate your problems and not self medicate with it in the future, that's great. But I'm going to tell you that alcohol is going to keep you, it's going to hamper you at least from dealing with your PTSD and getting those issues resolved. So please do. Please just stop. Okay. Reach out to somebody and get some help. And they're, even if it's one of your buddies, that you served with, reach out to them first, but do it, please.
That's good. So no alcohol. If you're listening, do not self-medicate with alcohol if you're struggling with mental health. And then another caveat is, if it's PTSD, don't even go near it. It doesn't help. What did you do to come out of it?
Boy,
The self-medication part.
it took self-medication. I had a couple of false starts, actually probably several false starts, but one in particular, I had quit for over a year and started drinking again. And then after a few months, got back on the wagon. And now it's been, like I said, almost 6 years. I pretty much made the decision myself and monitored myself. And fortunately, God gave me enough discipline to quit. I did go to AA. I had to go to several different groups until I found one that really suited me. At that point in my life, the last thing I wanted to hear was a sermon. I wanted to hear, how do I quit drinking and stay quit? So try different meetings and find one that you feel comfortable in that is helping you. The helping you part is the objective.
Yeah.
You're probably not gonna be comfortable anyway. As a father, and as many of us do, I had that realization, this is not good for my children, so I need to quit. And then, of course, there are other family and friends. There are people out there that love you and they do need you. So definitely don't take that 30-inch step in the wrong direction. Get some help. There's a lot of people out there that would be more than willing.
Yeah, seen something.
I've lost uh, 6 of the Marines that I served with that committed suicide over the years, and it's a tough pill to swallow. Don't do it, Marines.
Yeah. I mean, I think suicide is in my opinion, I think it's a little more normalized now as a form of self-medicating. And in all reality, you think that it. So
Mhm.
please, listen to.
One last thing to say, this has been something that I've been pretty hard on the last couple of years, and that's watching threats in America. Our nation is my primary concern. There are a lot of people from here and from foreign nations that are here and they mean us harm. I know a lot of us, a lot of you, America, keep up with that. You know what the deal is. There are people here who hate us and they mean us harm. So I would urge you to start getting your family prepared, get them safe. It's as simple as having a storm kit around the house, having something to protect yourself with, and I mean firearms. And have a plan. At least have a simple plan. Remember KISS, keep it simple. Although, I don't like I don't like calling anybody stupid, and some people deserve it, but most of us don't. But so there's a lot going on out there, a lot of bad stuff. You need to prepare to keep your family safe. Get them safe, keep them safe, and then work your way out from there. Hoorah, Semper Fi.
Stand by, contact.
is a podcast featuring active service members to discuss their thoughts and opinions on various issues surrounding military life, current events, and history. The statements heard here are the opinions of its members and guests. These do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Defense and are not endorsed or sponsored in any way. Listener, viewer discretion advised.